Selection 10. Warehouses and the warehouse complexes. Warehouse logistics. Many side function of logistic management of merchandising includes of the choice of the place of warehousing, definition of the sequence and the movement of production through warehouses in the course of merchandising coordination and the operation of transfer, cargo handling, storage in various warehouses, ensuring the accelerated turnover of material values and economic financial material, and manpower when warehousing raw materials and the finished goods. Through warehouses, sale of finished goods and providing the industrial enterprise with necessary raw materials, fuel, the tool and the equipment is carried out. According to the principles of logistics between production and the transport and the consumer always have to be warehouse objects, serving for smoothing uneven cycles of production, consumption of production, and the work of different types of transport. Thus, in the general system of the movement of production from manufacturers to consumers, it is necessary to consider existence, branched warehouse and the systems. The main destination of warehouses is expense and the storage of various material values, preparation them to production or personal consumption, and the rhythmical providing consumer with them. The quantity and the nature of warehouse operations depended on the range, physical and chemical properties, conditions of expense and the holiday of goods, extent of mechanization and automation of operation, and other factors. At expense of freights from transport firms, according to the existing rules of transportation of goods, it is necessary to be convinced available of vehicle of containers of sales, sender or point of the sender, the serviceability, prints of them, conditions of vehicles or containers. Removals of a sale need to be kept unit until the end expense and the receipt of goods. Besides, it is necessary to check whether routes of transportation, providing production, freight from damage and damage were followed. Storage of materials begins with laying of materials in rack and stack. Stacking line is expedient for storage of big batches of uniform goods. From providing with free air circulation, the stack is stacked on the pallet. Between stacks and the sailing leave free space. Height of a stack is defined by character of goods, type of container. Warehouse height, maximum load on 1 SQM of the area of flow under the pallet. Extent of mechanization of work in warehouse. The stack has to be sturdy, otherwise it can collapse, spoil a container. cause dispersal damage of goods, and the event to serve as an accident cause. Stability of stack is reached by voice of his line, direct line, cross cage, return cage. The most convenient and the progressive way of weighing of freight rack. Such way current good condition of the daily operational according of goods and the most rational use of a capacity of warehouse. The holiday materials from a warehouse is the final stage of technological process of work or warehouse. This process includes of following operations: selection of goods from place of storage, preparation for a holiday, paperwork on a holiday, sending to destination or shipment, except receiving, storage and deliveries as required of this or those materials, implementation of appropriate preparation of material resources for production to consumption, carried to functions which are performed by warehouses, and connection to the correct consumption of materials and container according to the established norms, identification and the withdrawal of the unmarketable, outdated and the spoiled materials, ensuring full safety of goods. Timely detection and mobilization of excessive material values and the waste which aren't used for production and the economic needs of enterprise. Correct use of warehouse space and the volumes and the rational operation of the intra-factory equipment. Implementation of the rational organization of loading and unloading and the intra-factory work with minimum expenses of work and money. Maximum mechanization and automation of technological operations. Organization of through the direct flow commodity stream. Ensuring regularity and the rhythm of warehouse work. Maintaining the according of stock in nature and the value terms. Providing the planning bodies of the enterprise with necessary information on extents of stocks of production, their receipt and an expense. General characteristic of warehouse network. The most important links of logistic chains. Modern warehouses would meet in our functional fields of logistics: supplying, production, distributive. In turn, the level of hardware warehouses, the parameters, the cargo overworking ability, the used technologies incidentally influence the strategy of the made logistic destinations and the organization of movement of material streams. Warehouses are the integral elements of logistics. Objective: need for spatially equipped places for maintenance of stocks exists at all stages of the movement of material streams, beginning from primary source of raw materials and finishing in the end user. The role of each warehouse in logistic system of advanced goods from the supplier to the consumer depend on character and the volumes of separate warehouse operations. Quite extensive nomenclature of warehouses which on functional purpose are divided into 5 versions is explained by it. The reverse warehouses intended for ensuring production, the preservation warehouses ensuring safety and the protection of stored products, commission change warehouses performance intermediate activity, the transshipment warehouse which carrying or temporary storage, delivery and return expense of objects. Spatial warehouses, custom storage of container, returnable waste, effective function of warehouse economy and the warehouse engineering him in system logistics, inspective of the employment and the kind of activity is possible only at the successful solution of a number of problems. Problems which firms face during creation of warehouse economy and the realization of the operating warehouses. It is possibility to carry the main. The choice between own warehouse and the public warehouse. Determination of quantity of warehouse and the placement of warehouse network. Choice of the location of warehouse. Definition of loc and the size of warehouse and the development of the system of cargo handling and the warehousing. Lection 11. Equipment of warehouses and the technological process in a warehouse. Transit corridors. Device and technical equipment of warehouse. Warehouse buildings and construction are divided by the technical device closed, open and spatial. The closed warehouse can be land semi-underground, on story and multi-story, heated and not heated. Carry canopies and also warehouses at which site was arranged to perimeter to have closed warehouse devices. The situ also one and multiplying. Open warehouse are understood as platforms for open storage, separate materials, fuels, woods, inert construction materials, metals, containers. Carry bunker constructions for storage of various books to spatial warehouse devices. Constructions of the receiver type of storage, various books, constructions of receiver type for storage liquids. White and dark oil production. Acids, oils. Warehouse devices concern to group of production constructions. Therefore, the constructive decisions in many respects correspond to the principles of design of production buildings. One stored buildings including with many the racks having a number advantages before multi-stored adds high intensity of goods turnover and the extensive momentum of storage freights, namely a most wide speed. Possibility of more intensive inclusion warehouse in technological process. More rational use of the warehouse space. Smaller operation expenses. Warehouse have to the loading, lifting and the transport equipment. robotic loaders, electric lift trucks, elevators, electrical machines of stacking line, crane beam, waste and winches, car and electric cars, cargo cranes, conveyors, crane stability, and the basis of design of warehouses. Structural basic element of the warehouse building: the base, walls, basic columns, interflow overlappings, floors, a roof, storage and the peaks of them, doors and the windows. Characteristics of space planning and the constructive solutions of warehouse buildings: step, flight and the height. Step: distance between the main cross building designs. Flight: distance between the longitudinal building designs. Floor height: distance between the level of floor and the ceiling. Production equipment of the device of warehouses. Complaints of the area capacity of warehouse to character and volume technological operations. Complaints of parameters and configurations of warehouse building to requirement of rational and technologies of the carried out operations. Organization of warehouse activity. The warehouse is difficult technical in construction, intended for equipment placement, accumulation, storage, processing, a holiday to the consumer, and the distribution of production between consumers. The organization of technological process in a warehouse. Flow charts. Detailed development of warehouse operations. They can be made on a process of warehouse processing of production or on his separate stages. In flow charts is defined content of work, performance, the list of the document made on the course of technological process. Technological schedules provide performance of warehouse operations in time. It can be schedules of work loading mechanisms, schedules of arrival of buyers of warehouse or to the how or commodity sample of sampling. Production. Schedules of work or zone of expedition. It's receipt warrants for acceptance and the receipt of the materials and the container arriving from supplier made out of the corresponding warehouses of the enterprise as a rule by drawing up written out the basis settlement and also by covering note documents of suppliers. Limit and taking cards intended for registration of holiday of the materials which are systematically consumed at production and also for the current control over observance of the set limits of holiday materials for production needs. Sheets of use of limits applied at registration of holiday of materials of production by requirements and also return from production and the movement of materials from warehouse to the storeroom of the shop by consignment notes, control over a holiday of materials within a limit. Transit corridors. Transit transportation to fit in organically in geopolitical interests of any state. From one side, they promote integration process with another, they simulate development of national economy by attraction of investment and the creation of new jobs. Transit potential of separately taken state consists of two key components: existence in limits of reasonable availability of capsules, dynamically emerging markets, and the transport infrastructures, including on adjacent territory of transit. National strategy Kazakhstan 2050 is one of the long-term priorities of development, provides competitiveness of domestic TKK in the world market and the increase in trade streams through the territory of the country. Therefore, special attention is paid to formation of transcontinental transit corridors in the territory of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Owing to historical, geographical, and demographical features in Kazakhstan, there was a limited number of the track directions in which transport communication of the country with foreign world carried out. Nevertheless, advance in the direction requires the all-round and the weighted approach taking into account the following factors: the transcontinental transit corridor responds to a complete system consisting of transport infrastructure and also legal and technological norms of regulation. Formation of potential transit corridor is ostensibly caused by political choice of each state on which territory such corridor can lie. In information of transcontinental corridors, interest of the stage advance and competing with Kazakhstan for attraction of transit freight traffic and involved. Lection 12: Terminal systems, terminal transportations. The terminal operation cycles of freight in terminals. The concept terminal has come to Kazakhstan with development of the international economic relations. In world practice, the concept freight terminal, which designates the transport distribution center, rendering not only services in warehousing of goods of various appointment, but also offering wide scale of the accompanying service is accepted. Now in the Republic it isn't fulfilled, and the system of transshipment terminals and the terminals hasn't guided still due development owing to what considerable introductive expense on transport and the consumer served by him or observed. The acute storage of modern warehouse terminals leads to the fact the forwarding companies carry out only deliveries of freight and aren't engaged in placement the domestic warehouses. Today it is necessary to consider a terminal complex as the large transport and the distributive logistic center with a wide range presented services. He has to have technical constructions with the modern processing equipment along to have specialist warehouse, container terminals, platforms for sediment of the rolling stock of transport, rooms for performance of customs functions, branches of banks and the centers of certification, transport forwarding and brokerage firms, insurance companies, security service and safety, administration premises and the offices of clients, trade missions, centers of warehouse, wholesale and retail, trade and business centers, mail, phone, telegraph and other types of communication, computer and information and logistic centers, centers of maintenance of the rolling stock of transport, hotels, restaurants and the point of food, shops of wholesale and the retail trade and demonstrative halls, analytical research center complexes. Terminals as classified on universal and specialized. The universal terminal represents group of warehouses with distribution center in which processing of the wide nomenclature of joint freight is made. The terminals which are carrying out processing and the transportations of only one type of cargo belong to specialized. Specialization of terminals is explained by need of ensuring high level of customer service in the conditions of competitive fight. The operation cycle of freight in system of a terminal complex consists of the following main technological process: import, export, transit. Import includes unloading of freight from the vehicle, his delivery to a warehouse, a freight node set, carrying out customs operations and the placement of freight on warehouse.